Good morning and welcome to another Mocha Money Monday brought to you by the Phenomenal Hughes Community and Welson's Financial Group. I am here today with the hot girl doc, none other Dr. Clarissa Francis. She is just such a phenomenal woman. She is an empowering and inspiring coach, therapist, and just she teaches about so many things from DEI to sexual healing and sexuality. And she, of course, is a boss that runs her very own business. So we're very excited to introduce and welcome to get today Dr. Clarissa Francis. Welcome, Dr. Francis.
Thank you, Ashley.
So let's talk a little bit more about your background and how you got started and known as the Hot Girl Doc.
Okay, let's see how it all started. I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio. I some background about how I got into the work that I got into. A lot of, I'll say, lack of information, and also a lot of, then there was shame around sexuality, being a Black woman, growing up Black girl, the Black girl body, and so I took interest just definitely personally from lack of information and curiosity. And I noticed others around me also wanted this information or needed this information, and in a way that wasn't judgmental or misinformed. And so it started young for me personally, I'll say, in high school, picked up more with it, got deeper into learning more about sexual reproductive health and sharing with others, then continued, just got deeper and deeper with it in college, being trained as a health educator, healthcare educator, and so primarily a sexuality educator. Most of my work was started out with HIV/AIDS awareness, but also my background academically is Africana studies and women's studies, and so I was interested originally in the psychological effects of slavery, and something that I noticed that one I felt wasn't discussed enough, and then when discussed, felt like it was limited. And so when it came, so topics around health, sexual health, mental health, in Black communities, and I took interest specifically in Black women's sexual health, and also reproductive health. And so looking at the history of Black women's bodies, and even the experimentation or use of enslaved Black women's bodies um, to create the discipline of when we talk about gynecology, and so celebrate those who did such practices, and so it just continued. You know, when we talk about topics of systemic racism or other forms of oppression, it shows up in different ways, and so I wanted to take a deeper look into the root of what was going on, and not just looking at the surface. So when we're talking about HIV, STIs, or prevention, or even when speaking of the history of African diaspora, you know, is typically negative, limited, and sometimes could come with judgment. And then there's some things that we internalize. And so I wanted to incorporate pleasure and healing into the work. And so again, still very personal journey of my own of removing shame around my body and sexuality. Growing up in the church, I was a PK, and so I realized being who I needed when I was younger and who others needed. So I worked a lot with college age students, and I did my work on the hot girl movement. I was inspired by Adrienne Marie Brown with Pleasure Activism, and then Megan Thee Stallion with Hot Girl Summer. And so right along the time when I was doing my work around Black women's sexual liberation, and noticing trends in literature and in music, with Black women collaborating on different projects and speaking up about their desires and what we doing and not doing anymore. And I was like, okay, this is something happening here. It's like this is not just a trend or a phase. I was like, I was like, this is a movement. And so when I completed my doctorate in human sexuality and was completing my research, I took on the Real Hot Girl doc as a part of my personal journey and professional. But then also, so it's like it has multiple purposes. It's an affirmation for myself. Also go by Serenity, but also I like modeling a a different approach to doing this work and how it could be a lifestyle, and not just a profession.
I love this for us as a Black woman, and as a culture. I think, like you say, you actually have a quote on your website that just says Black women's pursuit of sexual liberation is a radical act. And so to take this model and this framework and create a business out of it, there's something very liberating and empowering and revolutionary in not only saying, like, I want to empower and inspire women of color who are in college or even further along in their journey around sexual healing, wherever they are on that pathway. Like, I'm not just talking about it, but I get to live it as a lifestyle and I get to make money from it. I get to eat and have a profession around something that can really heal the world. Because when you heal a woman, I do believe you heal the world. So I want to talk a little bit more about the business side, because I know it's revolutionary because it's taboo, right? It's revolutionary because people are not comfortable. Like you said, it's wrapped in shame when you start talking about sexuality and Black women's sexuality. So how do you turn this work into something that's more palatable, if you will? Like, how do you find your tribe? How do you amplify your work in a space that might not be well received, if that makes sense?
Yeah, because so I've lived that, discovered that, and exploring that still. One already because it's a taboo topic, so it's not always accepted in every space, even when it definitely should be. Science, medical spaces, health spaces, cultural, the healing spaces. And so sometimes it depends on the person. I like to, I'm an Aquarius, so I got rebel in me. I like testing things out and challenging people. And so I've gotten to a space where I don't mind being the one to bring up the conversation, but I understand that's not always the case. And so depending on where it is and what you're talking about, you make a tailor, because I have conversations with people on how to even talk to their children, younger people. So there's certain things and ways you could talk to younger people. I've presented in religious spaces on the topic, so a certain way I had to approach it there, versus maybe how I would maybe have it, maybe a more intimate event. But one thing that across the board, one, it's needed. The conversation, we have to have a conversation. So we've had enough of not having a conversation. It has led to us not really tapping into what we really can to, with our power, and specifically with Black women. Why with that quote of the pursuit of sexual liberation is a radical act. One, because with knowing the history of, as I mentioned, with our bodies, the denial, not able to make decisions based on our body, of things that happened to our body was put in our body, who have access to our body. And then even with expression, you know, and the denial of that expression and safely, you know, so that fear of harm. And then pleasure, you know, and that's a big piece of the work that I do. It's like approach that pleasure is healing, and how even changing your mindset around one, challenging any messages, you know, or systems that have gotten in the way of your pleasure, or made you feel uncomfortable of expressing or tapping in to that pleasure. We talk about with femininity um, and the benefits there, you know. So challenging those messages, addressing that, naming those things, and then deciding what do you need to do to heal, work on that, address that, whether it's with a therapist, mental health professional, spiritual, variety of ways, energy work, body work, tantra, and so you can apply it, you know, in different aspects of your life, whether it's professional and relationships, business, partnerships, even in parenting, you know, how this works. When you mentioned of how healing women, healing specifically Black women, healing the world and the family, the villages. So it's really important work, and it crossover in other ways as well.
Absolutely, it does. So I want to talk about tapping into that femininity a little bit and how the benefits that you talked about, right? Because when I think about, most of us are always trying to find joy, peace, health, wealth. Those are the things that I think we are most attracted to and want to have in abundance in our life, right? It's not
Mm-hmm.
just material things, but just this sense of I have what I need and more than enough to be able to make sure those that are around me have what they need. And I think that as a woman, sometimes when you're not tapped into your femininity, you're not giving that energy, right? You're in that struggle energy sometimes when you're not fully tapped in. So I'd love to kind of dive a little deeper into this conversation around tapping into feminine energy, tapping into and healing so that you can experience the fullness of your womanhood and that womb power and that creative power and that nurturing power. So let's talk about that and how those benefits you kind of shared. You didn't get into them, but I'd like to get into them.
Okay, so again, a personal journey. Some conversations, I think this conversation has come up at even some Phenomenal Hughes event with, because being surrounded, typically, you know, in spaces with some boss women or other boss women, or, you know, business owners, entrepreneurs, there's certain characteristics that we may take on while we're handling business. And something I noticed personally is I felt, because really with energy, we're talking about energies with masculine and feminine. It exists in all of us, you know, and we just have a different combo sometimes, you know, based on what we're doing or not doing or where we are in our life. And I know I feel the shift based on where I am in my life, whether I'm in a relationship, who I'm in a relationship with, what am I working on at the time, whether I'm in school or if I'm working, if I'm doing more of my creative work, you know, or healing work, or I'm doing more writing or my research. And so something, one of the one of my I think biggest lessons when speaking of with feminine masculine energy, and then, you know, being in this work, being ambitious, something that I noticed, I practiced as a massage therapist for some years, an energy worker, and part of it was when I experienced the benefits of just regular massages and taking care of myself, because after finishing my master's I had it was just a period of feeling like it's like I didn't do the best job of taking care of myself. And it's like allowed myself, I feel like, to get hard and stress, you know, and feelings of depression is just like drain. And I was like, I need something to refill me. And like I just I was like, and I started getting massages, doing yoga, and exercise. And I was like, this is amazing. And I was like, all Black women need this. I was like, everyone needs this, but I was like, specifically Black women is a part of our conditioning, typically come with taking care of others. You know, whatever roles you have, it can start as young as, you know, as you being a child, being a big sister, big cousin, sometimes even having to parent our parents, you know, in different ways, or being responsible for them emotionally. And then this crosses over into your relationships as you get older. Then we have with people pleasing and not, you know, putting yourself. And so something that came up even when I did a conscious erotic touch training with Goddess Amina, something that was interesting that came up for me is becoming more comfortable and open to receiving. You know, part of the exchange, you know, with the energy of femininity is receiving, being open to receive,
Mm-hmm.
even whether it's a compliment, whether it's a service, a
Mm-hmm.
gift, you know, or something. And this could, you know, speak to your love language or just speak to where you are in your life, you know. And I'll notice you can even feel it uh, in your body. And so the left is associated with the feminine, and the right side associated with masculine. And sometimes I'll even feel the hardening, you know, on the left side of some, and you know, and I'm like, you need to receive more. You need to open yourself up to just receiving. You know, it's like I would ask even like, what do you do for fun or to relax? And I was like, oh, what's that? I was like, I go to sleep or I drink wine. I'm like, that's cool. I was like, but you have to incorporate some things, and whether it's you know, we talk about having a soft girl era, you
Yeah.
know, it's like that's a part of it, of the softness that women are seeking or accepting or open ourselves up to, as you talked about with resting earlier, like just how important it is of just taking a nap. I love with the nap ministry, you know, of just encouraging Black people to rest and just sit down. That was something that was, I'll say, was a something I guess cool to see or interesting to see even during in 2020, where everybody had to sit down or or it was
Yep.
forced to like really just either be inside or just limited, you know, access to the outside, you know, other things. And so some people notice some things about themselves or their
Very true.
relationships or just different things in the world. And so just taking more opportunities to sit down, to rest, self-reflect, do what it is that feels good to you, and surrounding yourself with people who support that. So, you know, that make you feel bad or feel like it's something like a big ask, you know, things like that.
So I want to go ahead and talk a little bit more about your business, right? And how you are growing or scaling your business. Like, what do you feel like is a health practitioner? Like, especially when you have this very special niche, how do you grow and scale a business like this?
Um, so something that's really important to me is creating a business around what comes natural to me. And so it was important while I was on my journey, which it took some time to really with combining my worlds. As you see, like I had different interests and different things that I've studied or researched or worked, and some can be kind of different. They're related, but different lens, different conversations that I'm having in Black studies versus what I'm talking about in like sex ed, you know, or gender sexuality studies, and then some different conversations in the healing spaces. And so for years, I had went without. I kept them separate, which was not sustainable and it was very exhausting. And then it exposed some things about myself. And so doing speaking for myself and some who may do work similar to me and have maybe a similar approach is creating something, one that you're passionate about, and are able to gather resources, whether it's from own personal, professional, academic, others, that are doing the work or have some stories or lessons to share. Um, and also creating a safe space to be able um, to when having conversations on this topic or doing presentations, it's like as mentioned, it's already could be taboo. It could already people could be on the defense, and you never know what can be uncovered. So making sure to stay in my lane as much as possible. So I'm actually so I've although I've practiced as a massage therapist, and I've done some coaching. I primarily do offer education and in consulting. And so the consulting work is because of where I am now, after almost 15 years in sex education. I have a transition from being primarily the educator, the one to do the workshop, or the one to offer the presentation, to now guiding those and supporting those in this work, because that is the journey itself, and I wrote about that in the book Freak Like Me, Becoming a Real Hot Girl Doc. Is I talk more about my personal experiences, in this journey than my actual academic journey, because it's school, it's grad school, so it's going to be challenges, but it's all the other things happening outside, especially when you are advocating for this freedom, and this healing, and this something that's just hasn't always been modeled, especially in this way. Like we've seen it, especially in music. I say music has been the most consistent of showing free Black women or liberated Black women or sexually expressive Black women. And I wanted to also tie it in with the literature and research, for those who may not have that background, or may even be aware, but they have the passion or they have the gift, in this work, which is it's a lot of space and opportunities for someone, whatever way they do it, whatever type of work, whether they're the creative, whether they're the logistics, or whether they're the investor, whatever it is. There's so many spaces. Like I've met so many creative people in this work that have just figured out what works for them, and the ones that I see are the most successful are the ones that it just makes sense. It's like it makes sense that this person maybe is a model or offering demos for certain services or certain tips, to help couples. And then I see others where they're in their couple, they're married couples, created whole platforms in this work, and they look like they're having a good time. It looks like a lot of fun. And so encouraging. So part of like we get into this work is creating something that's authentic to me. And I realized a part of the sexual liberation journey is it involved a lot of healing and like conversations with my younger self, at different stages, like the little Rissa, like maybe elementary, middle school, and then there's a teenage, early 20s, Rissa, Serenity, and just really like doing things. Like even I went through I always talk about with twerking as my therapy, even sometimes even bringing back in hula hoop, how beneficial. And so incorporating like with the chakras, and that's the energy work piece of how we have all these blockages. And we experience different trauma or receive these messages and show up in different places, and then we also will see in so many spaces that are places in our body that we can hold certain energy and emotions, and trauma is also the same places that we have high numbers, of of certain chronic illnesses or conditions, specifically related to our womb, reproductive organs, and even in our sexuality expression and pleasure.
Mm. Well, Dr. Francis, you have given us so much to talk about and just to think about today. Thank you so much for being our esteemed guest. Is there anything else you want to leave with our audience? I want to give you the last word before we get out of here today.
Let's see. Some things I would leave wherever you are in your journey, whatever work that you do, something that can be useful across the board. I would say is in general, just always just checking, challenging any messages you receive while growing up or in your field, in the work that you do, um, that have informed what you think about yourself, your work, whether it's how you show up in relationships, whether this is business or personal relationships, even feelings that you may feel about your body, certain activities or things that you want to invite in or things that you want to release. And healing is important, finding ways to address whatever those things that may have come up for you, those triggers, those negative experiences, and seeking a professional to assist you in this journey. Excuse me, whether it's a coach, a mental health counselor, or some type of healing practitioner, specifically with your business, whether it's a business coach, financial coach. It's okay to accept help and ask for help because it's there, it's available for you, and find ways to implement that. And so apply that into your everyday life. And speaking up for yourself, advocating for yourself, um, resting as needed, even if you feel we operate our car and our devices, we charge them up, we get in oil changes, we doing all these different things. And so just also approaching yourself in that way, as well. And yeah, I think that is all. Just do what works for you, do you.
Do you? Thank you so much, Dr. Francis, for being here with us today. These were some very good insights around just healing and the power of just being radical, right? Being able to be sexually liberated, being able to embrace your pleasure. So thank you for just being you and giving your gifts and yourself to the world in the way in which you are doing so. Thank you all for tuning in to another Mocha Money Monday. If you want to connect with Dr. Clarissa Francis, you can visit us at phenomenalhues.com, our social networking site for phenomenally hued women. And of course, men too. We are all on a journey to become more successful, bankable businesses and holistic entrepreneurs. So please join us over there. And we want to always thank Wellson's Financial Group for their beautiful contributions to this community and creating and developing this platform. Thank you all and have a great day, and see you next week for Mocha Money Mondays. Peace, guys.
Right.